July 6, 2021. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, GBN TV channel 7, 11 and 20. Good morning to the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9 and the folks joining us on Party Grenada and Go to FET Facebook pages. Always a pleasure to have you. This morning I was expecting Mr. Ali Dowden from the National Democratic Congress. However, I have not seen him signed on to the Zoom platform as yet. So in the meantime, we are going to open the phone lines to you, our viewers and listeners, and we're going to have an impromptu open phone line here on the program. This is an opportunity for you to share anything that you'd like to, your thoughts. If you have questions, comments, concerns about something, this is your chance to do so. The landline number 435-2041. The WhatsApp number, it's also 435-2041. Please, only written messages on WhatsApp, and you can post your comments, questions, queries, concerns on the GBN Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page and the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel. Let's go to our first caller. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, announcer.
Good morning, Ms. Jemma. How you do?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm good.
The phone don't last long, and the phone is not lasting long. So let me say quickly what I want to say.
Sure.
God, I want Grenadians to think and to recognize that God is looking over this nation. Those of us who don't like God, I don't want to hear God. Look around. Grenada has not been touched by the COVID in the manner that many nations of the world have. This storm, Elsa, that just passed, look at how God spared Grenada. I want Grenadians to recognize that even though they're not thinking of it, that God is the one who is keeping this nation. God is the one who is looking over this nation. There's a lot of evil practice in this nation. And God is calling the nation for years to repent, and they're not doing it. They're refusing. But yet His mercy persists and protecting and delivering us. And that is dependent on the few people who stand in the gap and intercede for this nation. So I'm warning Grenadians, when God really going to move His hand away, it would not be nice and easy. He gives people time to repent. He gives the nation time to turn to Him. And if the nation refuses, I don't want to say it will be unrecoverable, because He's merciful, but it will be very hard. It will be very harsh. And so to avoid God's wrath, Grenada, repent. Go on your knees and ask God for forgiveness and mercy and thank Him for sparing us. His hand might be withdrawn one day because He's God of wrath. Although He's a God of love. He hates sin, and He sacrificed His only Son to save the world from sin. But yet we persist and we have no regard for Him. God is asking this nation to be thankful, to be grateful, and to repent.
Okay.
God bless you, baby. Have a blessed day.
Thanks. You do the same. Thank you very much. Let me see if there are any comments, questions on the social media. Somebody asked me a question this morning during Good Morning. Let me see if I can find it. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Blossom. A pleasant good morning to you.
Good morning. How you doing?
I am good, but I could be a little better. You kind of tricked me this morning.
Oh, I'll trick you.
Listening to you on the radio in the kitchen, I'm hearing this nice song. What a beautiful day. Running to the TV to see Blossom's special dance with the hand movement and another song playing with Grenada. And I'm so disappointed. But anyway, have a blessed day. And Blossom, I just want to say congratulations and all good things to Mr. Jude Bartholomew for the president of the GUT. I think he gave a very good account of himself this morning. I mean, he just had me listening. And we really need leaders like that to stand up and to stand up for what they believe in and work hard for the people that, they're elected to represent. And I did remember, part of the teachers' hard work and dedication, even if we beat them down. They were the ones that went out and find that little boy that was missing, and the police had, watch looking out for him. So they really need to be complimented, and we just want to say thank you to all of them. They have worked well for, a hard-term work despite the challenges of having to go out there to demonstrate for the 4%. But we also want them to know, as little business people on the road, when they get their 4%, we getting it too, because they go buy 4 pound of potato and 4 pound of green pig. God bless you and have a good day, Blossom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much, caller. And that would take us to, or give us enough time to welcome our guest this morning. Okay, right. Thank you very much, callers, and thank you for the brief impromptu open phone line that we had this morning. I am now joined by my guest virtually. I have joining me is a member of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Ali Dowden, and I think, we can still call him the caretaker for St. George Northwest. Good morning, Mr. Dowden, and thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Good morning, Blossom, and good morning to Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and all of your viewers and listeners in both in TV land and radio land. It's really great to be here with you. My humblest apologies for my lateness. That was due to technical difficulties. So it's not me wanting to be late. So my humblest apologies.
Understood. Technology doesn't always work with us when we want it to, but I appreciate it. Better late than never. That's the saying. Better late than never. So thank you once again.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Dowden, will start with St. George Northwest. As I introduced, you are currently still are the caretaker for St. George Northwest. And I guess the question can be, come next general election, do you still have the desire to contest the seat? What are your future plans for your future political plans in the constituency as well as in the party of the NDC?
You're putting me on the spot.
One time, same time.
Do I want to let that out right now? I am not so sure, but this is what how I will answer. As it relates to St. George Northwest, I continue to remain very much invested in that constituency and in the well-being and the development of the constituency. Of course, when I entered politics back in 2010, that's the year I entered. But of course ran on an NDC ticket for the 2013 general election. My focus have been on St. George Northwest and the developmental plans that I share for that constituency, because I believe that a lot is lacking in the constituency and that more can be done, especially in the area of human development and empowerment of our people. And of course, the infrastructural aspect. Of course, I've given that constituency, I've run in that constituency on 2 occasions. I have not been successful, but of course, I have had many victories in terms of I've seen an increase at the poll as compared to my competitor who has decreased compared to 2013. He got less votes in 2018, while I got more. I improved considerably in all the polling divisions. Was able to strengthen the constituency branch in more than one way, bringing on new members. As it relates to me currently, I do not have any plans to run in St. George Northwest in the next coming election, unfortunately. I am assisting the party in actively seeking out a caretaker that will take the baton from me and continue. But of course, I would remain there in terms of supporting at the constituency level and whoever that new caretaker would be. While I set my goals on a new challenge, so to speak. But of course, I remain in the politics. I remain with the party, and more than likely, I am hoping that I will run next election 2023, or if it's sooner. But I'm not looking for St. George Northwest to run in St. George Northwest at this point in time.
How successful has the search been so far for your possible replacement? Because I would imagine anybody who wants to run for St. George Northwest against Prime Minister Mitchell needs, as they say, intestinal fortitude. And a lot of people may be intimidated or daunted by that prospect. Have you seen people shying away from that contest, or people willing to step up to the plate?
Well, at least so far, we have had at least 2 individuals, one male and one female, showing interest. These both individuals are new faces to the politics. I mean, of course, they've been around in terms of national development throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, but not necessarily in frontline politics. So I would say there's an interest. Of course, there's a hesitancy as well, because, of course, one must admit that it is the most difficult constituency throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. And it's difficult on several fronts. The challenge for resources, the challenge for manpower and the support and so forth. But at least whoever is taking over from me, they would be in a much better position in terms of they would not have to start from scratch, because over the years we were able to at least accomplish many things, acquire many things at the constituency branch in terms of our equipment and so forth that we would need both to run an office and an election campaign. But yes, there are interests. Presently, there are 2 people before the party that is showing interest. So I'm hoping that there'll be more. So it will. Competition is very much welcome and it's healthy for democracy.
Let's speak now about your time as caretaker for St. George Northwest, representing the NDC. Being a member of the St. George Northwest constituency, what are your thoughts on the representation of the constituency, what Prime Minister Mitchell, or how he represents the constituency, as well as how has this experience helped Ali as a person, as a man, somebody with aspirations, whether it be political or otherwise?
Well, for me, first of all, let me start off. For me, I welcome any challenge. I believe it has strengthened me politically, and it has caused me to mature. I of course, having run in 2 elections, I have that political experience now. I understand how to run a campaign. I understand the process of canvassing and registration and its importance, and of course your election day machinery, the importance of that and how to organize at the constituency level. And of course, being in a challenging constituency as St. George Northwest, where there were little manpower and financial resources, and you still have to run a campaign to the best of your ability. And I believe the last campaign, if anyone take an objective look, they would realize that we ran a great campaign in St. George Northwest, hence the reason our results were much better. As a matter of fact, once the election bell was rung, that same night, our paraphernalia, everything just went into gear. By the time someone passed the next morning, they realized that Northwest was yellow all over in terms of our banners and flags and so forth. So we were ready to go. So for me, I've matured in that sense, and I've gained that political experience. And now I believe I can now use that and either transition into another constituency, or at least work with other caretakers in other constituencies, especially those who would be new and coming in, and I can use my political experience to help guide them and assist them. So of course, that they can be winnable in the upcoming election. And so that is the way that I am looking at it from this perspective. How can I be of greater service, and not just to St. George Northwest? Of course, as it relates to St. George Northwest and the current MP, I believe that much more could have been done and still can be done as an MP who has served the constituency for over 36, going on 37 years thereabout. And not just served as an MP who spent most of his time in opposition, where he may not have had the resources, or just as a minister in someone else's cabinet. But of course, he was the head of the cabinet, the prime minister. And if you go around, there's not much that one can show in terms of development in St. George Northwest. I am grateful, however, that in this term that he is serving, that we're seeing the low-income Chinese housing project taking place in Buseju. Housing remains a great challenge in St. George Northwest, and I'm hoping that many of the people that will end up with a home in St. George Northwest in the Buseju Hills, the people will come from St. George Northwest, and not we just take people from other constituencies and bring them in. Yes, everyone needs housing, but St. George Northwest is especially within the Buseju, the Grand Mall, Brizan areas. There's a great need for housing and quality housing. Of course, under the BNTF, I am very much happy, and I thank the government, and of course him being the MP, for ensuring now that there is a proper child development care facility within the Buseju community that would serve the areas of Happy Hill, Buseju, and Brizan. That's the new preschool that was built. If people go back to my campaign in 2013, this was one of my clarion calls during both election campaigns, and promise that the people of Buseju, Happy Hill, Brizan, they deserved to have a proper facility. When you look at, first of all, you start at Brizan, the students, the preschoolers, they use the downstairs of a community center, and I do not believe that was the ideal environment. It did not have the room whereby these students can have a playground, a play facility that they can go and they can run about, plus the area of a community center. I see community center that it should be more used as resource centers. And the way that it was functioning, it was just not functioning in that manner. Then, of course, the major issue that I had was this old society hall in Happy Hill that, of course, was being used as the preschool, and is still being used as the preschool currently. But I'm hoping that in September, the students will transition into the new facility. The roof in that facility was termite infected, and when the rain fall, you could see many holes in the ceiling, and of course water coming. It was just not the ideal place at all. And you're talking about, it took him 36 years in order to build that facility. But we give credit to BNTF and these other institutions to ensure that the facility took place. And honestly, I'm grateful that at least he bought into my vision, and the government bought into my vision, and now the people of Buseju, Happy Hill, and Brizan actually have a proper preschool. There's much more that needs to be done. Only 2 nights ago, I was reviewing his campaign promise made, and it's actually, someone sent it to me from GBN that brought it in a news clip. Whereby he promised the Jones Road that was going to be widened and made 2 lanes. Well, we see what happened in 2019 when that road fell apart in Moline. And of course, had Dr. Mitchell kept his promise and started to work on that road, maybe the back road and Jones Road would have been in a much better condition now. He spoke about the Mondo Road that is still left undone. Then he spoke about, this sporting complex in Buseju. We have had Ivan since 2004. Nothing has been done to the Buseju playing field area. The pavilion is still undone. The basketball court is in dire need of repairs. The basketball court in Cherry Hill is also in dire need of repairs. So when you look at the sporting facilities, when you look at the educational facilities, housing, healthcare, there's a lot that's left to be desired for a constituency that has been represented by the Prime Minister for over 36 years as an MP. You go throughout the region and you look at other constituencies like Ralph Gonzalez and Kenny Anthony, Denzel Douglas, these constituencies where they were MP and also they were also the prime ministers. And you realize that their constituencies are far gone. There's actually constituencies here in Grenada that was only represented by MPs, never had a prime minister coming from that constituency. And they're far gone in their developmental trusts. And so I believe that there is a need for new leadership at the constituency level, and I'm hoping one day, be it me or whoever, and be it someone on the NNP side or the NDC side, when that transition takes place and someone else becomes the MP one day, that hopefully they can try and make up for lost time, because I believe it's our people that are being left behind. Sadly, and that remains one of my passion. I believe in strengthening local governance structures. There should be village councils, there should be constituency councils, and empower them to help empower the villages and the constituency on a whole, and not leave it up to the MPs. And that's the problem. If we empower our people and we put the proper structures in place, then all the work would not be left for an MP to do, and there would always be that succession planning. So I believe we have to go back and look at putting structures in place and empowering our people. And I believe if MPs can do that in their various constituencies, that constituencies will go a very, very long way.
Now, earlier you spoke of wanting to bring greater service. And that reminds me of a question that a lot of people may have, and a lot of thoughts that they have in terms of the leadership of the National Democratic Congress. A lot of people believe younger blood is needed to run the party. And going off of your intention of greater service, is this something that you have considered, running or contesting for political leader of the NDC, or serving on an executive position on the party?
The thought have not crossed my mind, to be quite honest, for the position of political leader. I believe that I still have a long way to go in my whole personal development, both educationally and otherwise. I believe that there are a lot of other people out there that is more qualified than me, that are also as equally genuine as I am to represent the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. And so once those people come forward, I am willing to give them their support. Of course, I'm willing to play a much greater role in the affairs of the party. And so, of course, come convention, I definitely will be putting myself up for a post on the executive, because I continue to believe that we need to see more young people. We have a lot of young people within the party, but we need to see more young people within the leadership structure of the party. I mean, on the management, we do have at least 3 young people on management. On executive, we have a number of them. But of course, I'm hoping that, I think a lot is riding on the upcoming convention, and you should see a revamped executive with new faces, both young and not so young, but a mixture of synergies, and with those who are experienced and those who have the energy and the vitality.
A comment on the Facebook page says, somebody on Facebook says, he got less votes because of voter padding. They are moving people out there and putting them in other constituencies. How confident are you in the election machinery, specifically the last election, in terms of the votes and where people vote, which constituency they vote in?
Well, there are instances, for example, in JO7 in St. George Northwest, which is that polling division borders within the New Hampshire Willis area. St. George Northwest is on one side of the road, St. George Northeast is on the next side of the road. And there were instances that we picked up whereby residents of St. George Northwest were registered on St. George Northeast side, and we were able to identify them as supporters of the new National Party. And we know that there are instances where that happened in many constituencies. For example, there's a family member of mine who lives within Grand Mall, but yet for all, she was found registered in Calais, right? And she's a known supporter of the NNP. Of course, all of these irregularities were pointed out to the electoral office. But of course, we did not get justice in those matters. After the election, then they responded and made the necessary changes for these people to re-register where they should have originally registered. But of course, that didn't make any difference in the outcome of the votes or so forth. But that's just, in my view, how corrupt the system is, and it needs to be overhauled. But yes, you do find in the region in general, in the politics, that you find supporters of parties. They go and they register in other constituencies just for voter padding purposes. But at the end of the day, as constituencies, we have to, that's why canvassing and voter registration is very important, so that we can identify them. But when we identify them and we point them out to the relevant authorities, we of course expect them to take action. Unfortunately, in our case, not much action was we wrote the letters, but of course we didn't really get satisfaction. Probably the next outcome would have been probably to challenge it in court. But that, of course, you have to get lawyers involved. There's costs involved. But yes, it's something we're monitoring. And I know within St. George Northwest, those two borders within the New Hampshire-Willis area, JO7, and then JO5, which is in the Brizan border in Concord area. Over the years, we have had that problem whereby some registered supporters of the New National Party in Brizan were registered in Concord to give that constituency an extra push and support for the New National Party. But we continue to monitor, and we continue to point it out. Hopefully, this election we'd have better satisfaction from the supervisor of elections and the electoral office.
So you actually have evidence of voter padding and other irregularities?
We have St. George Northeast under the caretakership of V. Nazimburg. Wrote letters, and of course we have that in our possession, whereby more than 70 supporters we got back from I believe it's the person in charge of the office in St. George Northeast, coming out from the electoral office, where we got back a letter, and they pointed out that they picked it up, and of course it was going to be rectified. Of course, that response did not come until after the election results was already given. So we were not able to correct it before the election, even though the letters were written before the election. But we do have those in our possession. We have it in black and white.
So what can be done with that information? I mean, by the time you got a response, it was after election, but what can take place going forward? Are we just going to...
Well, the next stage, really, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but the other course of action that could have been taken, of course, would have been to take the matter to court. But when you look in the region and precedents that have already been set, not many times you see cases like that the court would overturn something like that in terms of an election, because, I mean, really, you would have to prove. How do you, it's sort of hard to prove. How do you know that even though these 70 people or so live in St. George Northwest, but is registered in St. George Northeast and voted, how can you prove that they didn't actually vote for you and they voted for your competitor who you're claiming? So there are a lot of technicalities involved. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't answer that question. But more than likely, we would have had to take a legal route. We see it was done in St. Vincent. Of course, it didn't change the outcome of the 2015 elections back in St. Vincent. It's right now. It's being done in St. Kitts. I think probably judgment, as far as I believe, has already been passed. And it didn't make any change, both with the opposition and the governing party in St. Kitts. So sometimes you go into that legal battle, you spend monies that you don't have, and it really doesn't change the outcome of the election. The best thing we can do going forward is to continue to educate our people, continue to monitor what's happening in those constituencies and on those election boundary borders, and to see how best we can file our objections in a timely manner and see how we can, I guess, speak out against it if the office wouldn't take corrective measures.
All right, let's take a quick break, Mr. Dowden, and then we're going to come back and continue the discussion, speaking with the NDC's caretaker for St. George Northwest, Ali Dowden. To the point, we'll be right back.
Montreal, it's time to line virtually one more time. Gemma Rayburn Baines here for Spice Island Cultural Festival, a celebration of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. This summer's festival is a celebration of life with food, fashion, music, and culture. Join us online Saturday, July 10th, 3 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube at Spice Island Cultural Festival. Info, spiceislandculturalday.com.
Do you hear what I hear? Listen to the ocean, and you will hear a cry for help. The ocean is hurting, and we are the source of the hurt. But we can stop and start to heal our ocean by preventing pollution from getting into our waterways. It can start with you. Join an active organization, or better yet, make a personal commitment. Commit not for just one day in the year, but for the rest of your life. Let's dispose of our plastic and other waste responsibly, and let's start building resilience. Let the healing begin.
This message is brought to you by the OECS Commission with funding from the Government of Norway. Remlit, tackling ocean pollution from tooth to sooth.
Hey folks, you're invited to tune in to Grenada Music to the World program, hosted by Eugene Gittens on Saturday mornings from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9, Hot FM 98.5, 98.7, GBN TV, and all their social media platforms. The only totally local music program in Grenada, representing all genres of music. So it's Green's Music to the World on Saturday mornings from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on GBN with the music icon himself, Mr. Eugene Gittens. See you then.
Welcome back to the Point, speaking with the NDC's caretaker for St. George Northwest, Ali Dowden, this morning. Before we go to, let's go to our viewers and listeners who may have comments, questions, queries, concerns, and then I'm going to get to my other question. So, those of you who may have comments, questions, queries, concerns for Mr. Dowden, this is your opportunity to ask them. The landline number is 435-2041. The WhatsApp number is also 435-2041. Please, only written messages on WhatsApp, and you can comment as well on Facebook and YouTube. All right, so let me go to WhatsApp. Somebody on WhatsApp says, Mr. Dowden, you started good and was on track, but do not say things you cannot support. As far as I know, and you know, the electoral office cannot move people. Don't go down the road of dishonesty. Stay on track. How would you respond to that WhatsApper?
Well, I'm not sure what that person is actually saying. To be honest, I am speaking the truth, and you can't tell me that I am not speaking the truth. That would be your opinion, or unless you're trying to be deliberate and dishonest and misleading. The electoral office can remove people. For example, let me give you an example. If someone who is living, let's say in St. Andrew, right? Let's say that person's name is John Doe. They show up in the constituency office, right? Let's say they go down to, in this case, let's say they go to the appeal office, and they walk with their relevant documentation, such as their birth paper or their passport. and they say that they're living in, let's say, Grand Mall, the office will register them, right? There is nothing in the electoral law that asks the registration officer for that person to provide proof of residency in that constituency. So the person will go ahead and register them, right? I am not sure what is the verification process that takes place after that, in terms of, do the electoral office really verify that? Really, where the objections would come from is from the different political parties who would constantly be canvassing the list with their people. And someone may say, when they canvass, let's say those who canvassing for Grand Mall, they may say, well, we don't know a John Doe to be living in Grand Mall, right? And they will have to drill down more and more to it. But they may never be able to prove it, because the person could have been someone who just started to rent in Grand Mall. And those are the loopholes in the law. And that's why we have asked for that law to be changed. We have asked for those amendments, and we have put forward it when we met. So the truth is, people can register in constituencies that they're not necessarily residing in, right? And that has been happening. I know of those instances. So yes, those are the facts. And if someone can probably go ahead, I'm not saying go try it, but if you do the research, you would realize that there is no law that says that you have to provide proof that you reside in that specific constituency. You just show up at the office and you register and you tell them, and they go on your word. But then if it's pointed out to the office based on the objection, then the office has the authority to remove that person after you present the evidence. Because of course you have to when you file the objection, you have to provide the evidence that the person is not, that John Doe is not residing in St. George Northwest in Grand Mall, right? So I rest my case right there.
All right, let me go to the phones. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Blossom.
Morning.
Good morning to your guest. Good
morning, go right ahead.
Good morning to your guest.
Morning, go right ahead, yes.
Mr. Dowden, it seems as though you're very versed in your political, it seems as though you're very versed in your political issues.
Okay, caller, turn down the volume on the TV or the radio.
All right, try.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but Mr. Dowden, something I find very funny with you. You're starting off your campaign or your canvassing with lies. How could you honestly tell me, as a person who myself canvass the electoral list very often, that people living in Brazil register and vote in Concord in St. John's? I'm from Concord, and I work oftentimes at the polling division in Concord. I know the people at Brazil. What you're saying is false, and what you're saying is dangerous. It is bad for the country. It is bad for your constituency and my constituency. I would like you to withdraw that statement, because the people who designed the electoral process in Grenada, they didn't do it by guess. So remember, when people vote in any constituency, there's that special things they have to do. You must dip your finger in the ink. So if you vote in Concord, you can't go back and vote in Brazil. You could speak all you want about voter padding, but when you speak to actual voting and elections, right, what you're saying is not true. As a matter of fact, what I think you should be doing, if you find Dr. Mitchell is not doing enough in his constituency and you want to compete an election against him and beat him in that election, you should take up the mantle and do the things that you find he is not doing, so then you'll have something to speak about.
Okay.
The people in that constituency is going to say, Dr. Mitchell, you ain't shit. Mr. Dowden is better than we can look. He fixed this, he fixed that, and he did this and he did that. Don't go into that area that you're going. Pull it.
Okay. Thank you very much, caller. Mr. Dowden?
Well, if that caller wants to be objective, I wish if he had stayed on the line, because he says a couple things. One, that he knows everyone living in Brisbane, and likewise he knows everyone living in Concord within his area. Blossom, I'll ask you a question. Do you know everybody living in your village?
Nope.
Thank you very much. So that to me answers that. The second part of it, because I like to take it in stages. He speaks about, you dip your finger and you go and you vote one way, and then you dip your finger and go and vote another way. No one is saying about voting in voting twice. I am speaking about being registered in the wrong place, right? In some way that you do not reside, but you go and you register in another area, in another constituency or another polling division, right? And you vote. Now he speaks about if I'm seeing things in the constituency not being done, that I should do it, and probably that would give me a better edge or something like that. Well, I want to build a school. Where am I getting the resources? If you have it, come bring it. There are a couple of things that I want to do in St. George Northwest. If you're willing to fund it, then that's fine. The truth is there are things that you would want to do, but you're constrained of doing it. I can't take on my own and go and form a village council or a constituency council. These things have to be done according to the law and what's there, right? There are bits and pieces that I may be able to do. I may be able to help someone with house repairs and so forth. And I do those all the time. I help people in need, people who have to travel and people who have medical issues and they want my help. Wherever I can help, I assist them. Someone going to school and they can't afford to pay for it, I assist. And there are many people throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique that can attest to that, right? But there are things that you just can't do because you're constrained. So I think I've answered all his questions or concerns.
There is a WhatsApp comment. Somebody on WhatsApp says, it's true, I work at a polling station whereby people have to go and vote in another polling station. So I guess the WhatsApper and the caller have two different experiences working
Correct.
in the election.
Correct. Different people, Blossom, would have different experiences, and also people who have different agendas, you would always find them having to say different things. But what I am saying is quite factual, and any objective thinker knows that they can back it up.
A Facebook question. Somebody says, we have been seeing a group of NDC members along with a few activists going around as a movement of changing Grenada going into the next election, but have not seen you on that platform. Can you tell why you're not on the bandwagon of change? And secondly, I am living in New York and have been having numerous conversations with young people as me and older, and they want to see the government change but want NDC to form the next government, but they have a leadership problem and think NDC is not ready. If election was called tomorrow and wanted a young leader as Ron Redhead, VTO, would you lead the party in the next election? What can you tell the people who share their views? So the first one, why they haven't seen you on the bandwagon of change, and your thoughts on young leadership for the NDC.
All right. Well, two things. One, I've not been asked, so I can't be somewhere if I'm not asked. Right? But we support the movement for change. Of course, many of the young people, if not all, that's a part of that platform, are either members or supporters of the National Democratic Congress. We share the view in the NDC that we need a combination of forces, right, in order to bring about change. And it cannot just be done alone by the NDC in and of itself. So we support the movement for change. And we're glad that young people are coming forward. Of course, some people do not want to be tagged under the banner of a political party. And so I think the movement for change also offers that for the independent young people who wants to come forward and be under that banner. ultimately, I believe that will be to the benefit of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. As it relates to leadership, I do not see the party in any way having a leadership crisis. The party currently have an acting leader that is constitutional, right? We had elected a leader in Sister Franca Alexis Bernardine back in 2019. Of course, in 2020, in November, December, thereabout, due to health reasons, we know that she stepped down from the post. It's only natural that the deputy will act in that regard. Of course, since then, the party has held its general council, and it's at the General Council that the date for the convention is chosen. That date at the convention was set to take place at the end of August. And so we are actively pursuing that. At that convention, a leader will be elected by the delegates of the National Democratic Congress. Whoever put themselves up, I always believe in democracy. I always believe in competition and having more than one choice, right? So come convention, a leader will be elected that will take the party forward. In the meanwhile, Mr. Adrian Persuader Thomas acts in that capacity. We respect and we support him. And the party is not against any young person coming forward. Anyone can put themselves up. The party cannot stop that once you are a registered and duly paid up member. Once you do the work, on that day of the convention, votes will be cast. The delegates will vote for the different options that are there. And whoever gets the most votes will win. And we will come together as always as a team and support that leader and that executive. The NDC in no way has a crisis for leadership, and the NDC continues to remain united. I sit at the Stratcom level, I sit at the management level of the party, and I also sit on the executive of the party. So I am speaking from being within the bowels of the NDC.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Dowden.
Yes, go ahead, caller.
I don't want to, I'll just say it again. People as you does say to bash you. But in any organization that people change leaders or have to change leaders, that you have, because if I said you might believe it's you. One has to show leadership qualities. Maybe you do not have the qualities to be a leader. So you don't have to push yourself to be a leader. The people must see you have leadership in you. That's one. Two is, I find personally, I'm not for any political party. When the time comes, I go and vote. And I made my decision to vote on certain principles. Now, as far as I'm concerned, NDC seems not to have the right mature leaders, or who have been placed as leaders. He or she seem not to be mature enough so that the people have a tendency not to support NDC. So maybe I'll suggest to you and the others to get, I don't mean to say age, when I say mature, because you see a lot of people, but at the same time, age means a lot. And they might be able to command depending on the intelligence and this and that. And the past experience in maybe not running from political parties to political parties.
Okay.
So then when you select these people, select age and maturity. Now, just give me half a minute. When I looked at the past leadership in the position as a lady, I think that when you all tell me or told me that because of health reasons. Maybe she might be too healthy or not healthy. So I would like people to explain when you say because of health reasons.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dowden?
Okay. Well, the last part, I believe that I do not need to answer that really, in the sense that the answer was already given at the press conference. Sister Bernadine gave her reasons and she spoke about her health. So that to me has already been answered. Going back to leadership, I do believe that this caller is quite genuine and means very well for his country. And I would encourage him, if not him being him, but also he can encourage others that he may know to come forward or put themselves forward in terms of leadership of the party, right? They can encourage people to come forward, and you may not be leader, but you may be able to serve in some capacity or the other. At the end of the day, we want to build a strong and resilient organization, of course, that can withstand the times, and of course that can have that common shared vision for Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Mahapique for the development in a sustainable way. As I said, come convention, I believe that we would come out of the convention in a much stronger position than we're now going into it. But there's a lot of hard work taking place behind the scenes to make it happen. So we look forward to the convention with great anticipation, like others. And be rest assured that I believe the public will be happy at the end of the day.
All right, it's time for us to start to wind down the program, but I wanted to get your thoughts on one of the latest. I know you have a passion for health, and one of the latest health issues relates to the COVID-19 vaccination drive. And specifically, I wanted to get your thoughts on how the vaccination program is being rolled out by the Ministry of Health, by government, by the powers that be, and the methods that are used to encourage people to get vaccinated, and to some people it's not working.
Okay, well, a couple of things. One, Blossom, I want it to be abundantly clear to the nation that the National Democratic Congress supports vaccination, right? We are not anti-vaxxers. We believe that the data is there and can show that the importance of vaccination and what it has done for all of the countries around the world over the years. So we encourage people to get vaccinated. Of course, we encourage the government to do more as it relates to education. We believe that there need to be grassroots education at the community level, right? And it may mean that we need to bring together the private sector, civil society, the unions, and get them involved in a way, probably forming a committee and having them to help push the vaccination efforts. We have to understand that it's not just this government, but governments around the region. It could be NDC that could have been in government, or populations in general, most of the time do not have full confidence in those that are leading charge of the process. And one must always take that into consideration. But when there is a show of unity from the various sectors, you find that more people buy into it. And we believe if we can continue to push education and speak to people and educate them and not try to scare them into vaccination or bribe them into vaccination, because then that makes it counterproductive. For example, we do not believe that we need to bribe our people into a lottery system so that they can become vaccinated. We see that as being very vulgar. And it's practically sane, but you see, then that's the mentality that a lot of politicians use, right? They feel come election, they can buy your vote. So in this case, the government is feeling that people are a bit hesitant to be vaccinated, so we're going to buy them to vaccinate so that they can be vaccinated. So we're going to come up with this bribery, this vulgar, right? That whereby we can shake some money and say, okay, you're going to win the lottery, $10,000 if you get vaccinated. Now, that in itself sends off red flags. Sometimes people start thinking, why are you trying to sort of bribe me to take the vaccine? Maybe there is something wrong. The truth is, I have taken the vaccine, right? The person I live with, Nenny, she's 76. She has taken the vaccine. We have not had any negative side effects. We're doing quite fine, as a matter of fact, right? And so we encourage people to take the vaccine. It is our only hope out of this crisis and for us to get the economy going again. In general, we feel that the government have done fairly okay in terms of the containment and the management of COVID. On the economic side, we believe that they have done a sloppy job, right? They have not been able to get the economy going. Even this curfew 12 to 4, it makes no sense. Are you saying that the virus comes out that specific time within the night / into the morning? By that time, most people are in their beds. Most people are already closed up, but it's having a negative effect on the private sector and the business community, especially those in the entertainment industry and the restaurants and hotels that will probably open up to 12, 1 o'clock thereabout, that by 10 o'clock they have to start to close up shop because they have to ensure that their workers who have to get back, be it from the south up to Concord, Guave, Grenville, wherever these people live, that they have to get back before the curfew at 12 o'clock. So that in itself restricts the movement of people and also business. So we believe that the way it's being managed from an economic level, that a lot is left to be desired. But we encourage people, because we're not against vaccination. We encourage people to get vaccinated. And we encourage the government to continue to bring all parties on board and push education. Educate our people on what vaccines have done in the past and what it can do now for our population. And get SGU and others on board who are in the medical field to have these educational sessions as well, right? For example, we probably can use GBN and the other stations and have a Sunday evening program for about an hour or two, probably maybe every other Sunday or every Sunday. And we get these medical people to come on, not just Grenadians, but maybe it can be from the University of West Indies or have something regionally with a couple people in the region speaking about vaccination, sharing in an open and honest way what's happening with the vaccination programs, the pros and the cons, and answering people's fears through their questions. And I believe that in itself would boost the confidence of people and will help people get vaccinated in a much faster way. We have been doing it from our end in terms of we have come up with a jingle, we have it out there, we speak about it in our meetings, we encourage people to get vaccinated. And we also believe that the government needs to try and see how we can get more options that people can choose from, so that they wouldn't just feel that they must take the AstraZeneca, because there are people who are open to the other vaccines, and some of them are actually waiting for the other vaccines to arrive. And once that arrives, you'd probably see an uptake in vaccination of our population.
Okay. Mr. Dowden, thank you so very much for being our guest this morning. Always a pleasure to catch up with you. Be safe and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, sir.
Thank you very much, Blossom. It has been a very long time. Yes. I'm very happy to be with you and your listening audience, and I hope that I'll be back soon. Let us continue to work in the best interest of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique as we move this blessed country forward. At the end of the day, we are all Grenadians, and at the end of the day, this is our country, and the success of this country relies on each and every one of us. So thank you, and may God continue to richly bless us always.
Enjoy. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank Mr. Dowden, the NDC's caretaker for St. George Northwest. Thank him so much for being our guest. And thank you, viewers and listeners, for tuning in to The Point. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. I'll be back tomorrow morning, God willing. Bye-bye, one and all.